Hello. This video is going to cover the basics of Revit. Revit is a BIM or Building Information Modeling software. Revit is best used as a tool later in the design process. This is because some of the commands are quite constrained. You still could use Revit as a design tool, but there's definitely better programs out there for it, like Rhino. Revit is really great for creating accurate models with precise measurements, and it's also really helpful for making quick documents like plans or sections on the fly. So let's learn the basics now. We're going to hit New to start our new file, and we're going to use the Imperial Multidiscipline template. Metric really is the superior measurement system. I encourage you to try it if you're not familiar with it, but for this video we are going to use the Imperial template. And I'm going to hit OK. Our file is now going to start opening. We're greeted by our level 1 viewport. You can tell the name by this little tab up here in the top left corner of our window. Now we're going to go to the architecture tab on the top ribbon, which should already be open. And we're going to go ahead and select model line. You can notice that we're now in a command when there's this green dialog box on the top of the screen. This lets you know that you're inside of a command right now. I'm going to use the basic line and click anywhere inside of our drawing area. And I'm going to drag my mouse and you'll see that it starts creating a line. This line easily snaps to the main axes, and if you do an angle, it will actually tell you the angle in reference to the closest by axis. I'm going to click to finish that line, and I'll just make a box real quick, and you'll notice that there are guidelines based off the edges of previously drawn lines. This allows us to easily make a box. If you want to get out of this command, you could either double tap the escape button, or you could go to the left top corner of the screen and hit modify is another way. Escape is much shorter though, so it's a nice little shortcut. Now I'm going to go back into the line command, and I'm going to show you that if you click to start a line, it will actually show you the length of it, and you could just drag it to the length that you want, or you could just start typing the length that you want as well and hitting enter. And make sure to specify in Imperial the feet by using the feet symbol. If I hit escape once, it will stop drawing, and I have to hit it again to get out of the command fully. I'm going to go back into the command to show you a couple different types of draw styles. There's the basic line, but there's also all these other ones that we have here. There's the rectangle, which allows you to easily make a box. Escape to get out of it. Now you can also use a circle, and you can set the radius of your circle. You can type this in. I'll hit escape to get out of this command. There's also this start end radius arc, which is essentially a type of curve. I'll click the start point, then I'll click the end point, and then I can set the curvature of it by dragging my mouse. If I click to set the curvature of the line, you'll notice that it will continue drawing from the end point with the same draw style. I'm going to connect this to the other end and make a sort of I shape. And now that the shape is completed, it's no longer drawing. And if you want to move around the viewport, you can hold the middle mouse or scroll wheel down and drag your mouse to look around like this. And as with most programs, you can simply use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. I'd also like to show you how you can select multiple lines. You can see that this box right here in the top left is made out of separate lines. If I wanted to select the entire box, there's a couple ways that I could do it. I could either select the individual line. You can tell that it's selected because it's blue and it has these blue dots at the end. If I want to select another, I'm going to hold Control, and then you'll see the plus symbol comes up on my cursor, and I'll click another line. And now I can select multiple lines in one selection while holding Control. If I wanted to unselect one of these lines, just a particular one, I could hold Shift, and you'll see a minus icon will come up on your cursor, and you can now select a line to deselect it. There's also the dragged box selection method. You'll notice that if you start from the bottom right of the screen going up to the left, it will select everything that it touches, even if the full line is not inside the box. If we try this from the top left down to the right, you'll notice that it won't select the line unless the entire line is within the box. Knowing the difference between these two will probably help you out later. And now I also want to show you how you can use the Move tool. I'm going to select all of these lines right here, and you'll see that we're in our Modify Lines command, and now this lets us hit this Move button. I'm going to click to start the command, and then you can pick a reference point of where we're moving from. This doesn't have to be on the lines, it could be somewhere outside. I'm going to click this corner, and I'm going to move this corner down to right above this line. I'll click to enter it, and it moves the whole selection. Also on the same toolbar is the copy tool, which is right there. You click to start it, pick a reference point of where you're grabbing it from, and move that corner up. I'm going to click to enter it, and you can see we have a new box. I'm still in the command, so I could copy more if I wanted to, but I'm going to hit escape to get out of this command. And as you can see, we're still in the modifying lines command. Let's turn our attention to the eyeball on the bottom right corner of the screen. Let's select all of it, and we can also use the rotate tool on the same toolbar. And it will start from the center, and we can click a reference point for our angle. And then you can drag, and you can see that it will make an angle from that initial point to your new point, which is where you will rotate it to. You could type a number to type like 90 degrees, or you could click it, hit enter, and it does it. And a little deselect trick that I like to do is just hitting anywhere where there's nothing. Instead of hitting escape, because this eyeball is selected, I'm just going to tap outside of the object and it will deselect all the lines. Just a really quick way to get out of a selection. Next, I want to show you the trim command. So I'm going to go to one of these boxes up here on the top left, and I'm going to modify them just to show you this example. I'm going to select this bottom line of this box and click and drag the blue dot to shorten the line. I'm going to do it here as well. Now we have an open corner here, and we're going to use the trim tool right here, which is accessible through the modify tab even when you're not in a command. I'm going to click the trim command, and I'm going to select this bottom line, and I'll click the other one, and you'll see that we'll project that it will finish this corner, and it does. So this is really a great tool for connecting lines that aren't touching. I'm just going to draw another example. That one was a perfect 90-degree angle, but this will work with any angle with any two lines. These two lines are at a bit of a weird angle. I'm going to go to modify on the top tab, and I'm going to select trim, and I'll select the first line and then the second one, and you'll see that it completes our corner. Another incredibly commonly used tool is the mirror tool. I'm going to use the eyeball, but I'm going to quickly move it to the side to make space for this command. I'm going to select the mirror tool, which is inside of the modify tab. This is where the command is. How this command works, essentially we're going to be drawing an axis line on the side of an object, and it's going to mirror it onto the other side. So we're going to be taking this eyeball object right here, and if I want it to be mirrored over here, I would click to start an axis line and click to finish it, and it mirrors it onto the other side. Very useful for symmetrical designs or rooms. Although these are just lines right now, a lot of these commands work the exact same when we're working with 3D objects. But model lines are super useful for setting up floor plans or kind of starting designs in Revit. Cool. Another useful tool is scale. So we're going to select our circle down here, and we're going to select the scale tool located right here. And I'm going to select where it's going to scale from, the reference point. I'm going to use the middle. I'll select the second reference point, and we're telling that this edge right here is going to go to this next point, with the center being our first reference point. We're going to click it to finish it, and it scales it. But these are just model lines, although they are pretty useful when it comes to playing with ideas or maybe designing a floor plan. But we need to move into the 3D space, which, as I said, a lot of these commands work the same in here as well. All right, I have opened a new file, just have a blank canvas, but you could totally use Control and Z to undo everything that you've done previously. We're going to go to the Architecture tab on the top left, where we already were, and I'm going to use the Wall tool, the basic Wall tool. Once this is started, you can tell we're in the Wall command with the green text box. I'll click to start drawing, just like a line. But unlike a line, if we zoom in, you'll notice that this actually has a predefined shape to it. It's because it's creating an actual solid object rather than just a line. So I'm going to click to finish this wall, and the command will continue. And I want you to notice the different symbols where our cursor is. They all mean different things. Right here we have this pink double-sided arrow, which means that we are aligned with an axis. Now we have a small pink X, which is kind of representing that our line is freeform right now and not really connected to anything. Here we have a larger bolded X, which means that it's aligning with the end of something. And when you're finishing a shape or connecting it back to itself, you'll notice the pink square. When you're modeling walls or other things and you want them to connect, you need to make sure that that pink square is there, otherwise they're not truly connected. So now we have a box that is an actual solid shape. So we want to see how this looks in a 3D view so we can see what it actually looks like as an object. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of the command, and I'm going to go to this little tiny house symbol on the very top of the screen. This brings us into the default 3D viewport. And when I say viewport, I want you to notice the two little tabs we have here on the top left of the viewport. We have our level 1 here on the left and our 3D view right here. You can easily select these to move back and forth between the views, or you could use the project browser on the right side of the screen and select the views. Just like the level 1 view, the scroll wheel will allow you to zoom in and out. If you click the scroll wheel down and drag, it will move your entire view side to side like so. But if you wanted to rotate around your object, there's two ways you could do it. You could hold down Shift, middle mouse, or scroll wheel and drag your mouse, and that will allow you to rotate around. Or you could use the Revit cube on the top right of the viewport and click the different corners or edges, which will allow you to orient your entire view according to that cube. We'll hit the front view and you'll see that it snaps to this orientation right here. And we can use the Shift and middle mouse to move back. Now I'm going to introduce the workplane system. What if we wanted to draw on the side of our object rather than flat on the ground? If we go over here, we can actually see that we have level 1, which is the viewport we were already drawing on. This is a flat plane. So if we select this, you can see this is where the plane is in the 3D space. Recall that we drew these walls on level 1, and that's where this box is resting on top of. That's because we drew it on level 1. But if we wanted to, we could use the 3D cube to snap to this front view. Let's zoom in on the object here. I'm going to go to Set Workplane in the top right corner in the Architecture tab. We're going to click the drop-down menu and select Pick Plane. Then I'm going to hover over the plane that I want, which is this wall right here. I'm going to make sure that I'm selecting the front face, making sure that the bounds are around it. And now that this is set as our work plane, when we click it, we are no longer drawing on level 1. We're actually drawing on the side of this object with the plane that we selected, which is the face. So if we go to the side view and go back to model line, now you can see that we can actually draw in this 3D view because we're oriented this way. And we can draw a crazy shape in this 3D view from the side. And I'm going to rotate the view to see where our lines are. And you can see that the lines that we drew are aligned with this front edge of our walls that we made. This is where we set the work plane. Another way to achieve this, if you have a complicated geometry that might not let you select it super easily, you can go to level 1 viewport, and we're going to use a reference plane in the top right corner. This is a more professional way to set up work planes. And this is just like drawing a line, but we're going to be setting the work plane. So we're going to click and draw up this way on the right side of the box instead. I'm going to click to name it. And I'm going to call it reference plane 1. So this reference plane is going to allow us to draw on the right side of this object in the 3D space. So let's go back to the 3D view, and we're going to orient to the right side instead. Then we can select a model line, and you'll notice that it actually won't let us draw right now because we're still on the other plane, so we have to set this new one. So we're going to go back to the Architecture tab. This time in the drop-down menu, we are going to click Set Work Plane instead. And there's also an option here to pick a work plane just like last time, but we're going to hit this drop-down menu in the middle with the text bar. And we're going to look for reference plane 1, like how we named it. And we're going to select that one. And then we'll hit OK. Now if we take a model line, we can now draw on this side of the object in the 3D viewport. I'll draw a circle, and let's rotate it, and you'll see that this is placed according to the reference plane we drew on level 1. And of course, using this Revit cube in the top right corner to snap onto the edges is one way to look at the side of an object or a building. But another way that you can do it, which is a little bit better, is by going to level 1. We're going to go into the View tab on the top of the screen. And you could either use a section or an elevation. I'm going to use a section in this case because they're a little bit simpler to set up. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to click to start it. Then I'll drag down and click to finish it. The arrows are dictating where this view is looking, and this blue dotted box is showing you essentially the view range or how far this view is seeing. So if you wanted to, you could drag these arrows to show deeper or shorter. This is essentially a side view that works exactly like this, but it can cut through objects if you want to see the inside. Now I want to flip this section because it's looking the wrong way, so I'm going to hit these 2 linear arrows to flip the section. And it flips it, and we're going to drag this arrow so that we can see our box within the view. Now I'm going to right click. Now the project browser on the right side of the screen, this is where you can access a bunch of your different views really easily. Because we used a template, there's already a bunch of folders set up for different views. We're going to go to building sections and open it by hitting the plus, and there's our section that we just made. So we're going to double click that to open it. And we are now in our section. You can see our walls and the circle. You can also see the levels. Level 1 is the initial plane we were drawing on. There's also a level 2. And the bounds of our section, we can select them and use these little dots to drag to change the size of the section. And something that I saw a lot in college, and maybe you're experiencing too, is you might accidentally close out the project browser or the properties menu on the left and right of the screens. So if those ever disappear, you can go to the View tab on the top ribbon. And once you're in there, you can go to the user interface and hit the drop down, and you can check these to turn these back on. I have yet again started a new file, and I'm now going to show you how you can use the architectural tools to make 3D models. So for starters, there's the wall tool, which we've already used. Now we're actually going to make a little house that we have. So I'm going to use this wall tool and just make a box. I'm going to make it 20 by 25. So I'm going to start these lines and type the lengths in. And I'll complete the box, ensuring that the pink square is there. I'll double tap escape to get out of the command. And let's go to the 3D view to see how tall our house is right now. And it's a little bit too tall for a house that's 25 by 20 feet, so I'm going to lower this. Selecting the wall allows us to see the height of it under our properties tab on the left, that our unconnected height is 20 feet tall, and that's a little bit too tall for our little house. So we're going to select all of our walls using the mass selection, and we're going to type the new height. I think we're going to make it 10 feet. That looks a little bit better. Now we're going to give our house a floor. So let's go back to level 1. And in the architecture tab, we're going to search for a floor. We're not going to hit the drop down, just the main tool. You can see that it's asking us to draw a boundary line. We could totally use the box that we have here as a reference with something like a rectangle, but I think I'm going to show you the pick line tool. Upon starting pick line, we can actually select lines that already exist in our project. We can select these outer edges of our walls, so I'm going to select those. And I want you to notice in this command that we have a blue text box, and we also have a check mark and an X. These are essentially commands that have steps where we can click the check mark to finish our drawing. And if we wanted to, we could come back and modify the drawing, but I'm going to hit the check mark to finish the drawing, and you'll see that it generates the floor for us. But if I wanted to go back and change it with it selected, I'm going to hit Edit Boundary. And this will set us back into the drawing mode. Now I can make changes to our drawing. We could add a circle, for example, in the middle. And this will create a hole in the middle of our floor. I'm going to undo that because we don't want that. So that's how you can do basic floors and how the edit menu works. Next, we are going to do the roof. I'm going to get out of the floor command, and I'm going to go back to level 1. And I'm going to go to the roof tool. And it's prompting us to choose a level to reference, and I'm going to use level 2 because level 2 is a little bit higher than level 1. Now we want our roof to overhang the sides just a little bit, so I'm going to start with a rectangle. And once I've drawn that, I'm actually going to use a new tool, which is the offset tool. And you can type here in the top ribbon the length that you want it to offset the lines. I'm going to use 1 foot, and I'll hover over the lines, and you'll see that it will offset based off the side of the line that we're selecting. And I'm going to delete the inner lines, the ones that we started with, because otherwise that would make a big hole in the middle. I'm going to click the check mark and go to the 3D view to check it. As you can see, our roof is hovering just a little bit. This is because our roof is set to level 2. So we can see level 2 is just a little bit taller than the height of our walls. This is because our walls are 10 feet tall based off level 1, and level 2 is at 12 feet. So we need to do a negative number for the height, and that's going to be the difference, which is -2. And that fixes our roof. The roof is now 2 feet lower from its base level. I'm going to deselect the roof. So those are the most important basic tools for creating a building in Revit, specifically with the architectural tools from the Architecture tab. You could also use windows and doors. I'm going to go to level 1. These only work because we have a template where doors are already installed, and you can see that just dragging my cursor over the walls allows me to place a door. Very simple, quick way to make a building. The second way that you can model in Revit is with model in place, which is a little bit more freeform. So we're going to go back to level 1 and to the Architecture tab and locate component. We're going to use the drop down menu and hit model in place. Now this allows you to kind of create custom shapes that don't have predetermined object shapes like walls or roofs or anything like that. So this gives you more freedom. We're going to type in a category name. I'm going to type in walls. This doesn't mean that we're necessarily making walls. It just is a category name, which really helps you in your workflow later. So make sure to name your objects correctly. So if you're making walls, call it walls. And if you're making roofs, make sure to name them roofs. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm not going to give this object a custom name. I'm just going to hit OK. And you can see we have these different tools up here on the top ribbon, different form options. I'm going to start with extrusion. This is a solid extrusion. We're going to use a rectangle drawing tool to draw a shape. And I'm going to hit the check mark once we have our square. As you can see, we have a 3D solid object. It looks a bit like a slab right now, and this is an extrusion, so that means that we're doing a drawing on a flat plane and we're extruding or pulling that drawing shape upwards or outwards. So if we go in the properties menu, you can actually change the extrusion length. We can make it taller, and you'll see that the object gets taller with that. Or you could use these little arrows here, the blue arrows, and drag them to change the height. You can use these to go side to side as well. You'll notice that although our object is completed, we're still inside this command because we can see the green check mark is here. This is because if we wanted to, we could go back to the Create tab and we could continue making extrusions, and they would all be grouped together in this one wall category that we just created. But we don't want to do that right now, so we're going to finish the model by hitting the check mark, go back to level 1, and we're going to create a new model in place. This time we'll call it a floor. And we're going to start another extrusion. And just like the model lines, you could use these different drawing styles. I'm going to use the curves to make this kind of strange curved moon shape. I'm going to hit the check mark to finish the drawing. Go back to 3D. And we'll extrude this up by pulling the arrow to make it taller. Now, I want to show you how you can cut things out of these objects as well. This time we're going to use a void form instead of a solid form. We're going to use a void extrusion. And you'll notice that I started this command in the 3D view. So if I go back to level 1, it actually won't let us draw because it doesn't know what workplane to use. So because of that, we have to set the workplane in level 1 yet again. We can do this while we're inside this command. I'm going to set this as level 1. Now I'm going to use a rectangle to just cut out this box out of the moon shape. I'll hit done to finish the drawing. And I'm going to drag our void extrusion upwards. And I'm going to click elsewhere, and you see that it cuts this out. That cut out super nicely for us because our geometries are simple, but if you're cutting out more complicated ones, you might have to select cut in the top left of the screen right here and select the part that you're cutting out and then the thing that you're cutting from. But we're not having that issue right now. I'll hit the done button to finish the model, and that is now a finished object. Now I want to show you just a couple of graphical tips. The first one I want to show you is how you can hide objects. First you select one and then you can right click it and you'll see that there is hide in view, which is right here. And this only hides the object in the current view that you're in. So this would only hide it in your 3D view. And if you wanted to hide it in level 1, you'd have to go and hide it in there as well. Although there are ways that you can do it across your whole project. But we can hide it by element or by category. This is where categorizing your objects helps. If we hide by element, it will just hide the singular element that you're touching. I just did Control-Z to undo it. Now, if you recall, we made this block out of walls, just like the building on the left side. So if we hide it by category, it will hide all the walls in the project. And you'll notice that all the walls on our building from earlier are also disappeared. But our floors are still remaining because those are different categories. I'm going to Control-Z to undo this. But if you wanted to reveal something, you would hit the light bulb on the bottom bar of your screen, which is covered by my overlay right now, but it's a little light bulb icon. And then you can see all the objects that are hidden in the red outline. And you can right click on these objects and now it shows you unhide in view. And we can unhide this by category. It's just like how you hide it, but it's the reverse. But we're going to go ahead and unhide by category to reveal all of the walls. I'll turn the light bulb mode off. And now everything is back in view. We can also turn on shadows by selecting this button on the bottom toolbar. We can click this to turn it on. And now Revit is generating shadows based off of where we're looking at the object from. You can set specific shadows in the sun settings if you'd like, but we're going to turn the shadows off. There are also visual styles on the bottom toolbar right here. Right now we're in hidden line view, which is essentially just black and white. But we could set it to wireframe, which allows us to see through our buildings and see the edges. And we could also set it to something like shaded, where you can see some preview textures based off of the categories of our objects. Roofs are green, walls are gray, and floors being a darker gray. There's also the textures or realistic view, which allows you to see the materials on your objects, but we haven't applied any to them, except the door has a preset wooden texture. Applying your own materials will be in a future video. I'm going to go ahead and set our view style back to hidden line because it's the easiest to work with. Next, I'll show you the visibility and graphics override, which takes advantage of how we categorized our objects. It's over here in the properties on the left side. And on the top search bar, you can enter a category name. For example, we could type in walls, and we could halftone walls with this button right here. Let's see what it looks like when we hit apply. We can see our walls are now a lighter gray for the edges. And similar to how hiding works, this will only affect the current view that we're in, but there are ways to get around this. Let's look for walls again. I'm going to turn the halftone off. These settings really allow you to manipulate the graphics of different categories. So I'm going to bring the walls back up. We can actually change the surface of our object under patterns for the surface. We can hit override. And for pattern, I'm going to hit the drop down and select one of these other patterns. I'm going to change the color of the pattern as well to something a little strange, like we'll try turquoise. Hit OK and apply and OK again. And as you can see, our walls have these little turquoise little dots all over it. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can manipulate the graphics in Revit. And this is also why you want to categorize your objects correctly when using a model in place. Now I'm going to show you how you can do different types of cuts on the objects, like floor plans and sections. So we're going to go back to level 1. We can see that our walls from our earlier building are white on the inside, and this is not really proper for architecture. So we're going to go to Visibility Graphics Override and Edit. We're going to search for walls, and there's a cut area, and we're going to go to Patterns and override it. and we're going to change it to solid, and I'm going to change it to a dark gray. I'm going to OK and apply everything. And now our cut wall is now darker. And the reason it's cut is because of our view range down here as I scroll down the properties side. If we hit edit, we can see the settings for our view range. This is essentially how deep in our project we're cutting through the walls based off the plane that we're drawing on. So now I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by cut. So here I have a 3D building that I whipped up in Revit really quickly from a 3D outside view. And here is the floor plan of the building with the walls darkened where it's being cut. This is what your standard floor plan looks like. Now we'll go back to a 3D image of the view with this cut happening. It's essentially a big horizontal plane cut that goes through the building, and then you look straight down from above onto it for the floor plan. As for sections, this is what a section looks like, where we're seeing the floor on the bottom, the roof on the top, and this is a sort of sideways cut looking into the building from the side. And going back to the 3D view, this is the same section cut. It's essentially a vertical cut that goes all the way through your building, and then you look into it from the side. But yes, floor plans and sections are super important for architecture. These are based off of the cut planes, which these levels, such as level 1 and level 2, have different cut planes assigned to them, which are the top-down views, but there's also sections, which I already showed you. If you go to the View tab and click Section, this allows you to create these sideways views. I'm going to click this one and start it from the bottom to the top, and this is going to cut through the building. I'll right-click it and click Go to View, and you'll see that now we're looking inside our building, just like that example. I'm going to change the visibility of the walls to be solid black when they're cut. That's how you change visibility settings. Following this video is going to be a walkthrough of modeling St. Andrew's Beach House in Revit, and this is essentially going to show some of these tools in action and teach you new tools that you can use in an architectural studio. Thanks for watching.